We'll get going now. Well, welcome everybody to today's webinar. We're so happy to have you. My name is Erica. This is Duncan to my left.
Hello.
I've studied with Karen for 3 years in money coaching and have been hosting Money and Spirituality with her since 2023. I've worked through a lot of my patterns with her, and we're still working through a lot, and have been very grateful to transcend a lot of money pain and integrate a lot with Karen. And just wanted to introduce first a few notes on etiquette for our class today. So we're gathered together today as if we're in person, and we'd like to ask that we treat this space as if we're live together in a meditation hall. So that means being on camera so we can feel like we're really present with each other and here together, and refraining from doing things that are distracting, like eating or drinking or moving on camera. And we'll keep ourselves muted when we're not the ones speaking, so that we're not distracting each other. And just so you know, me and Duncan were here to support you during the webinar. So if you have any issues with tech, you can feel free to chat me here, and Duncan and I will be here to support you. And I will introduce the lovely Karen McAllister. So Karen McAllister is a teacher and mindful money coach who has studied with her spiritual teachers, Capel and Sensei, for over 25 years. She is a founding member of Clear Sky Meditation Center, where we live together, and where she lives year-round in conscious community and leads fund development. She's dedicated to helping Dharma students integrate their spiritual lives with their personal and financial life, teaching the principles of creating a spiritual container to transform struggle and embrace vitality. And we're very happy to welcome you today. Without further ado, Karen McAllister.
Hi there, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Just a thumbs up. Yeah, great, excellent. Okay, so let's just take a breath. Just take 2 breaths and just let your shoulders soften. And welcome. I'm really glad you're here. So before we begin, we're going to just take a moment to arrive. So I'd like you to feel your body in the chair and just take one slow breath together. And so money conversations can stir a lot in the body, and even for people who are experienced meditators or deeply committed to a spiritual path or deeply committed to making the world a better place. Okay, so today nothing needs to be fixed or solved, and we're simply noticing. So let whatever is here be here today in the room. And I'm just really curious if you could pop in the chat, what made you curious enough to be here today? And if you wouldn't mind Duncan reading them out, what made you curious enough to be here today? So I'm just really curious to see what's in the room. And Duncan, as soon as they come in, if you could read them out, that would be wonderful.
Yep, ready. So Trisha's wanting a better relationship with money and abundance. Shannon wanting to reassess my attitude. Nancy, hi Nancy. Self-employed person, I have difficulty knowing the value of my services. Very valuable, we know. Ruby, you've seen it in my emails a few times and I'm curious. Lisa, wanting not to prioritize money over the natural world. Lovely. Jim, Karen offered me many insightful feedback on money before that I found helpful, so excited to learn more. Barbara is a death doula. Oh, wow, fantastic. And it feels icky to charge for those services, but no, she should. Yeah, great question. Hannah, welcome, Hannah. We still not got it sorted. Relationship between Spirit and me, earning lots of money. Being coached by Karen for 4 years, and she's ace. She is. Eden, I have a shopping problem. Good, thanks for the honesty. Emmy, I love my time receiving coaching with Karen. I'm so happy to continue learning and expanding. Forrest, welcome, Forrest. Desire to have a healthier relationship with finances. Kathy, I've realized that my attitude towards money is holding me back. Yeah. Jan, letting money drive my life. Dorothy, I'm doing a homework assignment around my long-standing terror around considering my own value. Yes, in financial terms. Great. Fatima, identifying my money blockage. Sandra, not seeing money as an obstacle in my spiritual life. Lovely. Melissa, in a period of living off savings to focus on intensive retreat practice. Yeah, good for you. I'm not used to being without an income. Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Well, welcome. It's all welcome in the room today. And I just wanted to get a feel about what's coming into the room. So before we go further, I want to briefly share where I'm speaking from and why this matters. So some of you know me already, but I'm a teacher and money coach with Clear Sky Meditation Center, which you probably already know. It's a contemplative community dedicated to awakening. And here at Clear Sky, we integrate meditation and very much into integral inner human development alongside it and lived life. So we're very practical, we're very down to earth, we're very practical, and we like to really look at the shadow and let the shadow come up. And we have a community that is able to and trained enough to hold the shadow to help people move through it. And so we're very grounded in practice, we're very grounded in study and service. So my teachers, if you've looked at the website, is Capel, who recently passed away last year, and Catherine Sensei. And they co-founded Clear Sky. I'm one of the co-founding members. And we have an integral informed evolutionary lineage is how we would define ourselves. That's quite a mouthful, but it's weaving contemplative depth with psychological, cultural, and relational insights. So we're not just about sitting on the cushion and pushing all these things like money, sex, and power away. We're all about including them, embracing them, and transcending them eventually. I'd also like to say that Clear Sky is located on the unceded territory of the Tunaha Nation and the homeland of the Columbia River Métis. And we acknowledge this and respect this, and we are committed, we realize we're on stolen land, so we are committed to being an agent of truth and reconciliation. I think we've moved into the era of repair now, and coming out of sort of the capitalistic culture and its damage. And I think we're all in this state of repair, which is quite an exciting time in history. And so we like to take the Indigenous wisdom and make a commitment to shape how we teach, how we relate to money, and how we understand responsibility and repair. That's a big theme for me, and in money is repair. And I also want to say a few words about my own conditioning, because I believe it matters who this work comes from. And so I'm Irish. I grew up in Ireland in the 1970s and 1980s during the time of the Troubles. So I grew up in violence, I grew up in fear, I grew up in instability and unemployment. And, bombings were frequent. It was just a part of my life, and a sense of threat lived close to the surface. And I was also raised by caregivers who have been deeply affected by the residential school system in Ireland, and a system totally marked by abuse of power, silencing, and really profound harm. But I'm not here to share this to alarm anyone. I'm here to say I'm no stranger to survival. I'm no stranger to fear, and I'm no stranger to the ways power can be used or misused systemically. And I've spent years upon years doing my own healing work around safety, belonging, and agency, self-sovereignty, right? So becoming a money coach, especially for Clear Sky and for spiritual centers, I've also worked with many meditators and meditation centers and ashrams and around the world, has given me a way to bring that lived understanding of my Irish conditioning into service, right? To help others gently unwind survival patterns, belonging wounds and power struggles as they show up in our relationship with money. So, the work comes from lived experience, long practice, and deep, deep respect for how hard it is to be human in these systems that we have created way back a couple of hundred years ago, that are not working for us now, right? It's funny, Clear Sky belongs to an organization called the Netzkraft movement. I don't know if you've heard that. It's a German-based international network of thousands of individuals and organizations committed to the common good, socially, politically, ecologically, and spiritually. And the reason I'm sharing this is that 2 weeks ago, they shared some research about how dramatically global inequality has intensified. And so you know that, but it was saying that today the richest 1% of the world's population owns nearly 50% of the world's wealth, where billions of people worldwide continue to live with poverty and insecurity. So I'm not sharing this to provoke guilt, I'm not sharing this to provoke ideology, but to name reality. This is what we're living in. When wealth and power and safety, which is so much to do with how we use money, are so unevenly distributed, our nervous systems respond. They respond with scarcity, they respond with fear, and they respond with comparison. So they're not, I just want to tell you, you're coming here probably thinking these are personal issues. I really want to say that they're not just personal issues. They're shaped by the world we're living in, right? So today's talk, it's not about budgets. It's not about spreadsheets, not about getting your finances in order. It's also not about manifesting or thinking positively enough to make money appear. That's not the work at all, right? This is inner work, right? It's about how money lives in the body. It's about how money lives in the nervous system. It's about how money lives in the psyche, and how it interacts with our spiritual lives and our lives in general. Okay, so I want to name this gently, that this is a webinar. This webinar is really a doorway. So for some of you today, it may be complete in itself. And for others, it may open curiosity about continuing this work together in a slower, more supportive way. Over the years, I've seen that real repair and healing around money often happens in relationship, because we created it as a community, right? We created it as a community. And it often happens in group, because the systems and the cultural habits we've built around money tend to isolate us from one another. So we carry our fears and comparisons and confusion privately, believing we're alone. And I guarantee, I tell you, most people will tell me more about their sex lives than they will about their money lives. That's how secretive it is, right? And so we've been trained in the capitalist culture, in the way we've organized ourselves, to measure ourselves against one another around money, rather than to collaborate or ask for support, even though money itself was originally created as a communal tool, right, to make life simpler. So I will be mentioning this throughout the webinar. There is a 4-week online program beginning February 14th, and it's an invitation into a small held group where the work can unfold gradually. There's no expectation to join. I'll just weave it in so you can feel it into whether it's supportive for you, okay? So many sincere practitioners, I've been doing this work I think since 2010, so I guess nearly 16 years. And many sincere practitioners carry a quiet tenderness around money. So many of us may feel we should be beyond it by now, or feel repelled by the way money is used in the world. And for some, money feels morally suspect, or literally morally suspect, as if engaging with it means colluding with harm. And there's a certain degree of truth in that. You cannot but collude with harm when you're dealing with money, because of the way we have organized ourselves around money. And for many other spiritual explorers or meditators, there's a subtle belief that if our practice were deeper, money wouldn't still activate fear, or wouldn't still activate terror, as somebody mentioned, or reactivity. So, I want to point that all this actually points to sensitivity. Okay, it points to sensitivity. It points to care and ethical awareness, and it's not failure. And at the same time, these responses are shaped by the very real conditioning in our nervous systems, right? And so let me make this very clear from the very beginning of this talk, that there is nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with money itself either, right? You all know we're living in a time of profound collective stress, right? I don't have to say that. You feel it. You feel it in your nervous systems. We're carrying grief about climate breakdown. There's fear around rising authoritarianism. There's a deep uncertainty around the future, etc., etc. Right? There's a constant background. It's in the ether of urgency, outrage, and distress, right? And it's there even when we're not consciously thinking about it. So the difficulty lies really not in you, but in the conditioning, in what we've inherited and what we've absorbed, in what we've adapted in order to survive, and in how our nervous systems are responding to a world that often feels unstable and unfair and really out of our control, right? So today we're creating sort of a non-judgmental space to look honestly and kindly at that conditioning. Okay, so to help you make sense of this, I'm going to share my screen here. Do you see that? Can you all see the screen? Yeah, great. Okay. So, oh, I've already said that. Let's go on to the next. Yeah, so this is the agenda today. So we're going to look at the spiritual journey through the lens of the 7 chakras and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, 2 mapping systems. And then we're going to map money onto that, where money lives. And I'm going to focus on the lower chakras. And then we're going to look at conditioning, ego, and the 3 poisons. And then we're going to look at alchemy, integration, and the ripple effect. Okay. And I hope this brings the freshest, newest thinking for you today at the end, that you'll make a connection or an aha moment about your relationship to money and resources. Right, so we're going to start off with, to help us make sense of it, I want to offer the 2 maps now. So we've got the 7 chakras, which you know is Eastern philosophy, and the other comes from Western psychology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, I think everybody knows about these. So these maps developed in very different cultural contexts, yet they describe something remarkably similar, and it's how humans grow, adapt, and seek fulfillment. So Maslow tells us that before we can focus on meaning or self-actualization, where most spiritual people want to be in a place of loving kindness and compassion and all those goodies, according to Maslow, we need food, shelter, safety, belonging, and a sense of agency, right? Those have to be really solid. And the chakra system tells a similar story, right? The lower chakras are concerned with survival. They're concerned, the root chakra. The next chakra is concerned with attachment. And then the third one around the solar plexus is about power. So the upper chakras relate to love and expression, insight and transcendence. But what I have found in my work over the 16 years is what often happens in spiritual communities is that we emphasize the upper chakras. We emphasize the heart, the third eye, the crown, now this is important, without fully tending to the foundations below. So there's gaps in our developmental growth as a human being. We've got these big gaps on the lower chakra. But spirituality doesn't replace our humanity. So our aim is to include money, sex, and power, include it and bring it in and integrate it into it so we can actually be in the heart honestly. Okay. Right. So if you have any questions in the chat, just put them in and I'll get to them. So I'm going to look at where money lives, the lower chakras. Okay, so when we place money on these maps, something important becomes very clear, that money lives primarily in the 3 lower chakras. So I have them there in 1, 2, and 3, 1 red and 2 orange there in the picture, right? And in the first chakra, it's all about survival and safety, right? Money relates to survival. Do I have enough? Am I safe? Can I meet my basic needs? Okay. And in the second chakra, it's all about belonging. It's all about needs, receiving, relationship, right? Money relates to attachment and worthiness. So what do I need? What do I want, right? Am I allowed to receive? That's a big one. I have a lot of people come into my practice with an inability to receive, to allow money really into their lives. Okay. And in the third chakra, it's all about agency and power and responsibility. And money relates to power and agency. Can I act? Can I choose? Do I have influence over my life? Many people don't feel like they have influence over their lives these days, right? So Maslow's first 4 needs sits right here as well, right? We're all born with access to these chakras. We're all born with a drive to meet these foundational needs, okay? It's not a flaw. It's just It's just life, right? And so the ego and persona also live here. And that too is not a problem. It's not a problem. The ego's great. The ego developed to help us survive, right? The ego developed to help us belong and function in the world. Yay to the ego. The ego gets a bad rap. So I just want to put it out there. It has its wholesome functions. But difficulty arises when these areas carry unexamined conditioning, right? So just jump in the chat. When money comes up, which area feels most alive for you right now? Is it survival? Is it worth and attachment? Or is it power, choice? So just jump on the chat. Which one feels most alive for you right now? Is it survival, worth, or power? And Duncan, if you could give me an idea of what's coming in.
We have a rush of survivals, a power, a couple of powers, some worth, a few more survivals and safeties, worth, belonging, survival, worth and survival, survival and belonging, power and belonging, survival and worth, all of the above. Some people hard to untangle.
Right, right. Okay,
I think survival might have pipped it, but quite a spread.
Right, great. Survival's the winner. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Duncan. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit deeper into these three and how it manifests in money. What does the money part of you say to yourself? So let's start here. So I'm going to just talk about the lower chakras and ego clinging. Okay. And I want to slow this down because it can sound abstract if we move too quickly. So let me just... In Buddhist psychology, as I said, we do Buddhist psychology. We also do Western mysteries. We also do Western psychology. We're bringing in a lot in the center, but I'm just going to focus in on Buddhist psychology here. In Buddhist psychology, when the lower chakras are activated, that means when safety, belonging, or power feel threatened, okay, when those places combine with what's called ego clinging, certain patterns tend to show up. So what I mean by ego clinging is I don't mean arrogance and I don't mean selfishness. I mean something much, much more ordinary. Ego clinging is what happens when a part of us believes this is who I am and this is how I stay safe. This is who I am and this is how I stay safe. And it's the tightening around an identity, or it's a tightening around a strategy that once helped us survive. Okay, and in everyday terms, it looks like gripping, it looks like defending, it looks like comparing, or it looks like bracing, right? Especially around things that affect safety, that affect belonging, and affect power. Okay, so I'll just pause there for a minute because this is a very, it would be great if you really let this in and really embraced it. So when that tightening happens in the lower chakras, the nervous system tends to fall into three responses. One of three responses. In Buddhism, these are called three poisons. They call it the greed, hatred, and delusion. But I don't want you to hear those as moral terms. A much more helpful translation is greed as grasping, a grasping, pulling towards, securing. So some people, sometimes some people have, $350,000 in the bank and they still feel like they don't have enough. There's a security issue there, right? Another one is the hatred is pushing away or resisting or rejecting. And the third one is confusion or delusion in Buddhist terms. Delusion is confusion, a tightening away, right? So I'm going to make it very concrete in a minute. So really, this isn't moral. This is just the nature of being a human being with money, belonging, and power. Right? We never get taught about it in school, right? And we kind of fall into them and fall into the triggers and the reactions around it. So again, it's not moral failure, it's adaptive survival responses. Okay, so I'm going to give you more visceral, because I'm very passionate about working somatically in the body. And of course, this is a webinar, so this is more cognitive. But let me bring you to this. So, before we go there, actually, let me just go back to what we were doing. Yeah, so some bodies lean forward, the jaw tightens, the mind said, I need more, I can't relax yet. So that's grasping, right? Some bodies harden, right? Their shoulders lift, there's a subtle no, money is corrupt, I don't want anything to do with this. And some, that's pushing away, right? And then some systems go foggy. Some human bodies go foggy. You know, numbers blur, the breath gets shallow. Oh, I'll deal with it later. And that's confusion. So none of these are wrong. They're simply what the nervous systems do when something important feels at stake. So jump on the chat. What do? Do you do the grasping as a general pattern? Do you do the pushing away? Or do you do the confusion? Right? Do you do the I need more, I can't relax yet? Do you do money is corrupt, I don't want anything to do with it? Or do you I'll deal with it later and you get foggy? What happens to you? So Duncan, let me know what's going on.
Yeah, we have a mix coming in: confusion, grasping and confusion. A couple of pushings away, few more graspings. Can be all three: confusion, procrastinate, rejecting, avoiding, push away, confusion, grasping. So quite a spectrum. I've gone through all three, says one person. Grasping and push away, tightening or freezing fog. Very beautifully put.
Right. Thanks. And thank you for being courageous enough to put it in the chat. So, this is all in the room. Hello. It'll all come in the room. Let's all hold it together. So, money presses directly on our lower chakras, right? So when money enters the picture, we often see grasping for security, right? Pushing away responsibility or power or confusion and avoidance. So it doesn't mean we're failing spiritually. It just means our survival intelligence has taken lead. Our survival intelligence is brilliant, highly adaptive. And, I don't want to sort of boo-boo it. It's really has been, really updated again and again and again, right, to keep us safe. So I'm going to go a little more deeply into this, and I'm going to look at the root chakra, where your groin is, and look at ego clinging. What happens when at the level of safety and survival? What does ego clinging and safety and survival look like, right? So how does it show up? It shows up in fear and urgency. It shows up in control. It shows up in scarcity thinking, right? This is what I hear people say, and I go, oh, here's the root chakra and ego clinging. I hear money feels hard, right? I'm in survival mode. I feel overwhelmed and fear heavy. Okay. So what ego clinging sounds like here, the deep underlining assumption is I must stay in control or I won't be safe. And a lot of people in the Western world, we're not living in Gaza, or not living when I lived in Ireland in bombing and violence, they're just having an ordinary life, right? With not war or that, but they still feel incredibly fearful and that they're not going to be safe, right? So that's very interesting. So it's really not about trust issues, right? It's not spiritual failure. This is root level ego clinging, right? So the nervous system is bracing around survival. So any of you who are body workers, or any of you doing any of your environmental work or social work, it'd be really great to make sure that you bring in the body, that you really embrace and hear the body's wisdom, so that you can start working against the nervous system bracing, or have a plan to how to work with bracing around survival. Okay. So we're going to go on to the sacral chakra and what that looks like. So the sacral chakra is all about belonging, right? Belonging. So it's all about needs and receiving and relationship. And how this shows up, this is very interesting. A lot of spiritual explorers really don't know that they suffered from this until they worked with me. So difficult receiving. A lot of spiritual explorers are people that are spiritually inclined, and I would say if you're an environmental activist or you're an activist in general, you're spiritually inclined. I think, you know, what's happening with the planet, what's happening with social relationships, relationships in general, is a spiritual crisis, right? So for spiritual explorers, they overgive, they overdo, they over effort. So it's a learning skill to actually allow things in and receive things, right? There's guilt about having, right? So they subtly undermine, they underprice themselves if you're a person with the business, right? And there's a disconnection from flow or pleasure, right? And so the voices I hear here is I struggle to receive, I can't let things in, or I feel guilty having money, or I don't feel worthy, right? Oops, leave that there for a minute. So I'm just curious, is this you? Can you put in the chat there if you identify with this sacral chakra plus ego clinging situation? Is this you? Do you find it hard to receive? Do you feel not worthy to receive? Duncan, what's happening?
Quite a few yeses coming in. Yeah, quite a few. Some people considering, not sure, but quite a lot of yeses, and yeah, difficulty receiving, says Isabel.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely, says Catherine.
Okay. Okay, great.
Nancy says, bingo, I don't feel worthy.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't it interesting? So, you know, when you clean up your relationship with money, you're also cleaning up your distorted relationship with self, your distorted relationship with worth, right? And it's a particularly a woman's thing as well, this worthy thing, because of the cultural female conditioning generally. Right, we're going to look, so the ego clinging, the relational ego clinging, I call it. Sorry for the jargon. I'm trying to make it as less jargonized as possible. But what ego clinging sounds like here is I'm only okay if I don't need too much. I'm only okay if I don't need too much, right? Duncan, I think this was something big for you, was it? I'm only okay if I don't need too much. Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, I think, well, people have put in the chat too, like huge responsibility to receive or so on. I think for me, yeah, very much kind of keeping in a box. If my job is to kind of be of service and to support, really hard to receive, and then can kind of open it up a little bit. I kind of train myself, you know, I could let someone bring me a cup of tea or so on, but it's very much bounding. You know, it's not okay to want too much. It's not okay to need too much. So there's, yeah, being aware there's a real kind of carefulness around it, not to step out of the bounds.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And then receiving is dangerous or wrong. That's what ego clinging sounds like. Receiving is dangerous or wrong. Just pop on the chat. Does this resonate with people? Receiving is dangerous or wrong. Maybe Erica, you can jump in and tell me what's in the chat. To have your voice in the room.
Sure. A couple of people, Nancy and Shannon, say not for them. Sandra says not for her, but Lisa says yes, that is for me.
Okay, great.
And Ruby, yes. Melissa, yes.
Great.
Well, Ruby has a great story, right? Offered a promotion but declined because felt it would be unsafe. It's very interesting.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, I
And
love
Barbara
finding
mentioned before, right, receiving for her death doula work felt wrong.
And Melissa, like something may be expected of her in return that she doesn't want to give.
Right.
And Hannah, that it makes you more visible. Don't want people looking at you for receiving big and judging when you want to be nice.
Yeah, exactly. Nice.
And,
Nice.
and Karen, I forgot to mention when you asked me the question before, I think the response for me, at least in that case, is you just get very competent and independent.
Hmm.
So then it looks like you don't need any help, and then people don't offer you help. But
Right.
it's
Right.
it's built on these patterns that you mentioned.
Right. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so just to let people know that this is often shaped by early attachment and care dynamics, right? So if you intend to do the 4-week course, we will be looking at attachment styles and money, for example, right? To help you identify what was your attachment style, and then how, there's certain patterns if you're anxiously attached, or if you're one of the others, or chaotically attached, then there's certain patterns that I can help you identify, and sort of strategies to get there, to sort of look at how you can not act in that way. Of course, when you get to see these, this is the thing with Westerners, is because money hasn't been touched in this way, that when you actually look at money in this way, the healing, the repair is quite quick. And it's even quicker when it's in group as well, because of the secrecy of money. So we're going to go to the solar plexus. This is the agency, the power, responsibility, and ego clinging, and this is the last one. How does this show up? So it shows up in over responsibility, right? It shows up in pressure and self-blame. Shows up in control mistaken for strength, which is nice. Duncan just talked about that, right? It's a control mistaken for strength, being on top of it, don't need any help, overconfident, over efforting, and then everybody leaves you alone, or leaves it to you. He'll take care of it, she'll take care of it. And so the voices around this that I hear, it's all up to me. It's all up to me. I feel I have to manage everything. And things have to be a certain way. So can you pop in the chat, and Erica, let me know what's coming true? Is this you? Does this sound like you?
Yes, we have Rob saying this is me totally. JH, this is me. Gail feeling overly responsible. Fatima, it's exactly me. Michelle, yes. Isabel, overly responsible. Shannon, this fits for Shannon. For Lisa. For Jim. Unfiltered. Sandra, yes.
Okay, excellent. Excellent, great. Super. So let's look at the ego clinging. What does the ego clinging sound like for the agency, power, and responsibility, right? So what ego clinging sounds like here is, if I don't hold it all together, everything will fall apart. So, it's often rewarded, this type of ego clinging. So sometimes it can be hard for the person to actually see through it and let it go, because it is so rewarded, right? But it's incredibly exhausting, right? So it's power-based ego clinging, often mistaken for strength. Sorry, I'll go back there for a minute. So, these responses once made sense, right? You use them because they made sense at one time, right? And when we see them clearly without judgment, they begin to loosen, right? You can't just drop things. You just sort of see them, you see them again, you see them again, and slowly and surely they loosen their power. I hope I get this phrase right. There's a phrase in Buddhist texts that say, I see you, builder, you shall build no more. And that's what we're doing. We're looking how you were built around suffering, around pain, and then slowly loosening it or untightening it. Okay. So there's one last piece that I wanted to look at, which I think you'll be happy to hear about. And this is the lower chakras and shame. Shame. And I call it a cross-cutting pattern. So shame is I call it a cross-cutting pattern because it simply means it doesn't belong to just one chakra or one issue. It weaves through all of them. Okay. And shame tends to appear when a survival strategy, or a relational strategy, or a power strategy hardens into identity. Okay. In other words, shame isn't the original problem. Shame is what happens when something that once helped us survive becomes who we think we are. And this is very cognitive. I'm going to get visceral and just give you some examples of that, right? So with safety and survival, at the level of safety and survival, shame sounds like something is wrong with me because I don't feel safe. Like shame, the definition of shame is something is wrong with me, right? So at the level of safety and survival, something is wrong with me because I don't feel safe. Belonging, this is needs, receiving, relationship, right? Something is wrong with me because I need too much, or I am too much, or I want too much. And agency and power and responsibility, at the level of agency and power, shame sounds like something is wrong with me because I can't hold everything together. So if you can jump in the chat there, and Erica, you can tell me what's coming. What is the shame for you? Is it at the level of safety and survival? Is it the level of belonging? Is it at the level of agency? Just curious what's in the room.
Shannon had said she's a people pleaser and can only think that money fits into this in a negative way. And we have several folks saying belonging and safety, survival, agency, more belonging, agency and responsibility.
Right. That's interesting. There's a lot more agency and belonging in the
Shame and
responses.
both safety and survival, agency and responsibility. Yes, more belonging.
Okay, super. So what's important here is that shame doesn't belong to just one place, right? It weaves across safety, receiving, and power. And it shows up as the same inner message, just through different doorways, right? Shame is not a character, it's not a character flaw, right? Like I said at the beginning of this webinar, there's nothing wrong with you. And my teacher said that to me for 25 years, and it only actually landed after the 20th year. You have to be told things again and again. And he would say, Karen, there's nothing wrong with you. And I'd like, but, and he'd like, Karen, there's nothing wrong with you. So it's not a moral failure, but shame is the glue that keeps ego clinging in place. Shame is the thing that keeps ego clinging in place. So when protection becomes identity, the strategy turns into the story about who I am. Right? Whoops. Right? It becomes who I am. So that's why so many people describe money with words like, I felt deficient, or I felt unworthy, or I carried a lot of guilt. Nothing has gone wrong. This is what happens when survival strategies harden instead of soften. And that's the purpose of meditation, in many ways, is to soften and loosen our identities and attachments to being a certain way, right? So this is why money work needs so much gentleness, you know. And I'd love if every financial planner and every person in the financial world had this sort of knowledge, right? Because a lot of the financial planners, friends that I have, say that no one actually follows through on their financial plan as a whole. There's a tendency not to, right? And now you can see why, right? Or why people that are in the, environmental world or activists are not getting the money together, because they're meeting the shame. When they meet money, they meet the shame, right? So we're not undoing mistakes. We're meeting part of ourselves that learn to survive. Be very gentle with yourself. We're meeting parts of ourselves that learn to survive. So, my teachers would say even sincere spiritual intention can be eclipsed by deeper survival conditioning, right? And this is why money work is such honest spiritual work, right? When money enters the picture, this conditioning often becomes very visible. And not because we're doing something wrong, but because money presses directly on survival, belonging, and power. So as you hear this wider context, what's happening in your body now? Can you put it in the chat? Is there a tightening? Is there a softening? Is there, what's happening? Read the body for me if you can, Erica. the body, the group body, the collective body, what's coming in?
Mm-hmm. Lisa feels relief. Michelle softening. Kathy solar plexus tightening. Barbara tightening in lower sacral. Hannah sense of shame tightening, unworthiness in back and womb lower parts. Trisha sacral and solar plexus activated. Sandra relaxed energy. Melissa energy flowing to the chakras you're talking about. JH less guilt. Jan softening and lightening. Isabel chest tightening. Dana relaxing. Ruby tightening.
Okay, so just let's just take a minute and just take one very deep breath in and a slow exhale. And bring your mindful attention to the root chakra, the sacral chakra, the solar plexus. And if you can, just allow it to loosen. And if it doesn't, don't worry, just be with it. If it feels hard, it feels hard. Just accept that. Just inwardly say to yourself, I'm safe. Everything's okay. There's nothing wrong with me. Or any word that resonates that will allow some, just a slight, even 1% of loosening, or even not 1% of loosening. Just being what is. No pushing. Just noticing. And allow your body to sink more deeply into the chair. Just feeling the feet on the ground. And then just gently open your eyes, come back to the room. In our world today, the body and the mind are encouraged to be out of sync. The body and the speech are encouraged to be out of sync. The body and action are encouraged to be out of sync, right? So doing your money work, well, my intention for anyone who does this work is to sync up the body, speech, mind, and performance and action, right? So I said I would talk about this. Everyone has a money shadow and it shows up differently for each of us. And in groups, it's often where the real work begins, not by fixing these patterns, but by getting to know them with kindness. So in our 4-week program that follows this webinar, it's February 14th, same time, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. We're going to take time to gently map our money patterns, especially around survival, belonging, and power. We're going to explore how these patterns live in the body, how they were shaped by early conditioning, and how they show up to the lower chakras. And with awareness and support, these patterns can begin to soften rather than tighten. So for now, I'm going to invite you to gently notice without an analysis what happens in your body when you think about money. When you thought about money just now, noticing the sensations and the emotions and the images. Right? So coming to the end of the webinar, I want to talk about alchemy, integration, and the ripple effect. What's this about? So medieval alchemists spoke of turning lead into gold, right? And shadow work has always had a beautiful metaphorical alchemy, right? And psychologically, we may say that this is the work of transforming unconscious material into integrated awareness. And my teachers like to think of it as top quality psychic composting. We've got a great composting system here at Clear Sky, and we have 3 bins of horse manure as well that we're, because we have horses here on property, and so we're upcycling them. We're turning them into top quality composting for our gardens and stuff. Anyway, so I always like to think, I love the phrase that my teachers use, that, the shadow is, we're trying to think of it as top quality psychic compost. That's how we approach it, right? So we're not getting rid of anything. We're not transcending our humanity. We're allowing what has been hidden. We're allowing what has been hidden. We're allowing what has been avoided or hardened to slowly break down like compost and become nourishment, right? So when money is no longer an enemy or a moral test, it can begin to function as a spiritual ally. Something that supports our purpose rather than undermining it. So I've worked with a lot of people in nonprofits and in the activist world, and they have this pattern that pushes away the very fund they need for their mission. It's very interesting to me. So this doesn't mean instant abundance or a life free from financial challenge, right? It means relationship. A different way of being with money, especially when things are imperfect. So, what I also want to name is that this kind of integration doesn't stay contained within us. As body, speech, and mind and action come into greater alignment, something shifts in how we move through the world, right? We bring more steadfastness, right? There's a ripple effect, right? We bring more steadfastness into our relationships. We listen differently. We react less quickly. And we have more choice around money. We have more choice around power. We have more choice around responsibility. So without trying to teach anyone or fix anything, our own integration quietly supports the people and the communities we're already a part of, part of our families, our work, our sangha, our leadership roles. And in this way, what begins as personal repair, because you've come here because you have all personal money issues that you want to look at, right? It naturally becomes relational repair. That word again, repair, that's my favorite word in the universe at the moment. And over time, that contributes to healthier group culture and community life. Now, everybody here at Clear Sky has done this money work. And meetings around money they're light, they're joyful, they don't take a lot of time. People get to the core issues very quickly, right? So when we talk about integration, it's important to be clear about what it actually looks like, because it's often much more quieter than we expect. Okay. So again, I just wanted to say it's not transcendence. It's about relationship, and nothing's discarded. Everything's included, right? And being in community now for so many years, and having the opportunity to everybody seeing my shadow and me seeing other shadows, there's a very beautiful joy there as a result of working through stuff and with other people. So let's look at what integration looks like, right? So integrated money work looks very ordinary and very meaningful. It often shows up with it often shows up as more clarity and fewer reactive decisions. It shows up really with less shame, even when challenges remain, even when challenges are still present, actually. And it shows up in a nervous system that settles more quickly, right? And there's greater choice and there's greater agency. And there's a steady relationship with money. You know, healing tends to happen gradually in relationship and with support. So it's not about getting it right, and it's really about staying present, right? So next steps, that's it, folks. 55 minutes, I hope you're taking something away. And if the conversation resonates, you know, one option is the 4-week online program that begins on February 14th. It's designed as an integration space, slow, relational, grounded, and we'll work with the material you encountered today through teaching, reflection, and shared inquiry. We'll explore the lower chakras, money conditioning, and the nervous system in more depth with times to digest and integrate. And the program isn't about self-improvement. It's about accompaniment. Accompaniment. Having support as you stay with what's real in your relationship with money. So you're also welcome to reach out and book 30 minutes complimentary if you want to chat with me more about the course or about working with me. I invite you to do the money quiz, and I will send that in a follow-up email to you and give you an overall summary of your patterns and views that might be in your relationship with money. And that's it. So before, this is our closing prayer, but before I'm going to stop sharing, and if you can put on the chat, what are you taking away today? What are you taking away today?
Would you like us to read, Karen? Or
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be great to read.
so less shame. That's great. A bit of peace around my relationship to me. That's wonderful. Worthy to be paid, says Barbara. Yay. Rob noticed where money lives in his body and how it responds to it. Gail has more of a sense of calm. Michelle feeling some inspiration and direction for becoming whole with money. Forrest noting that he's maybe stuck in survival mode. JH really liked the integration, and the less spiritual fluff feels more grounded and attainable. Great. Melissa, more awareness and ability to name the patterns. Hannah, relief at my private nervous system hell, been seen here. It's very excited. Catherine, thanks so much. She couldn't immediately think of it much deeper than she expected. Kathy, feeling relief at the possibility of change and transformation. Jan has much gratitude. Virginia also very gratitude and appreciating the perspective and see how immediately helpful this can be. Jim loves the focus on relationship to shadow. Ruby recognizing ego clinging. Tricia, it's interesting to think how something we use as a survival mechanism actually becomes our identity. And Dorothy relieved that today's talk deals directly with shame and how so many resources ignore this. And then finally Jan, knowing I'm safe and everything is okay. It's a nice thing to leave with.
Thank you, Duncan. And thank you, everybody. I appreciate you showing up today.
Karen, there were a couple of questions. I don't know if you wanted to speak to them briefly.
Yeah, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close and then I will stay on because I did book it for an hour and a half in case there were questions afterwards. So if you need to go, please go. And if you like to stay and hear some of the answers to the questions or have questions yourself, please stay. So I'm going to share, this is our little prayer that we do for clear sky. And if you open your mics, we can say that. Whoops. There we go. What have I done? There we go. So open your mics and off we go. May these wholesome and powerful activities eliminate
negativity and
and
ignorance
wholesome
while
and powerful
producing happiness
activities
and
eliminate
illumination for the uplifting of the world.
This opportunity now as well, producing happiness.
And then we actually give it all away. All the goodness that was created, or the connections or the insights, we share it with the world. So for those of you who'd like to stay on, please do. And for those others, I may see you at the 4-week, or I may see you at a complimentary call, or I may not see you in that case. Have a beautiful life.
Thank you, Karen. Would you like us to stay on, or shall we?
Yeah, that would be great, because you've both have done a lot of work on this.
Yeah, so there were just a few. Did you want the questions now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, there were just a few. Sandra was back, I think it was with the sacral. She asked, is a challenge to give as well as the challenge to be receive, or challenge to give and be generous, also related to this ego clinging?
Absolutely. I see money. I remember Lynn Twist. I worked with her for a while, and I liked her analogy of seeing money as blood, and that a lot of the time, with our relationship with money, as we have been trained or what we've absorbed, is that there are a lot of blood clots in the system, right? And the blood clots representing a hardening of giving, a tightening in the heart with giving. There could be a tightening in the heart around receiving. I'm not worth it. So with your relationship with money, you want to be having a very beautiful blood flow. Blood is so much healthier when it's constantly flowing around, giving, receiving, offering, taking, right? And if you look at those areas in your lives, like if you look at giving and receiving, people are maybe giving from a place of control and not letting things in. Or some people may be not giving because they feel betrayed on some level, or they feel taken from or taken advantage of. So you've got to understand each of the blood clots in your system around money. And remember, it's not money, it's the very act of giving, receiving, taking, offering, and stillness too. There's a place where you don't actually do anything with money. Right? So it's a very deep study. Does that help, Sandra?
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And then Barbara was asking, we have two questions related to the power-based ego clinging. So Barbara was asking, along with the kind of being very competent and so on, is being too busy part of this too?
Oh, absolutely. I'm really glad you mentioned that, Barbara. Yeah. Again, it's a very important in the spiritual life. You get to look at your intentions and your motivations. That's very much part of our practice. So, why are you being busy? What's the intention and motivation behind your busyness? Are you running from yourself? Is there things that you don't want to look at that you're avoiding? Do you feel, some people feel, if they keep busy, then they don't have to deal with those uncomfortable, conflicting emotions. If they stay still, others, if they stay still, they feel there's something wrong with them. And so it's pure terror of looking inside in some ways, right? Yeah, the aim really is not to use busyness in that way, right? And be able to come to a place where you're doing your action. Again, like I told you, the sync between body, speech, and mind and action. Your actions are in sync with your mind and your speech and your body. They're all working together as a team, right? And I'd be curious, if you look at your busyness, what's out of sync in the busyness is another way to look at it, right? So when I get really busy sometimes, it's my mind is going really fast and my body's saying, slow down, slow down. And then eventually I get sick, right? And so it's a really beautiful way to look what's out of sync in order to, and what am I using busyness for, right? Does that help? Is that Barbara? Is that Barbara that asked that? Is she here? Anyway.
Thank you, Karen. And then one other question was from Hannah, also about the power-based ego clinging. She asked, can you talk about burnout in relation to this and this feeling like you are irreplaceable?
Ooh, yes. Burnout and irreplaceability, right? Well, burnout, again, Burnout's a real thing in today's world. You know, everybody's suffering from it in some form or another. And if you're on about being the power-based ego clinging, right? I'm powerful, only I want to appear as if I don't need anything, right? That can easily, in this capitalistic society, create the conditions where you overdo, that your nervous system just collapses, right? So you really have to own your own self-sovereignty. You've got to know your edges, you've got to know your boundaries, you've got to be very good about what is good for you, what is not good for you, and you have to train other people. That's a great question, Hannah. You have to train other people how you want them to treat you. We make the mistake that, you know, I'm a nice person, I'm a generous person, of course I'll do that for you. And then you suddenly feel like you're getting all this stuff that other people don't want to do, for example, right? So somebody always say, nice girls came last, right? So you really have to train others on respecting you, right? And that's like power-based, your full responsibility and radical responsibility for your ability to say, for people to know your edges. Because when people don't know your edges and they fall into you and they're confused about how to treat you, you know, so how you're being treated is a reflection of the work that you need to do in yourself. So that would be burnout. And the other one, well, what was the other question? The other part of the question?
Feeling irreplaceable.
Oh yeah. So sometimes this can be, we all want to be wanted and all want to be needed. And as we get older as well, we get into our careers and we're so and so and so and so. And we take identity in our attachment to being the executive director or being a solo entrepreneur or owning a theater company or whatever. It's so part of life is learning to or train yourself to become replaceable in all aspects of your life, which is very scary for a Westerner because a Westerner feels secure in their identity of being the wife, the owner, the mother, the whatever. And so a healthy development of the human being is to start loosening that attachment to those roles, right? Does that help, Hannah? I know Hannah and I work a lot together, so nice to see you here.
Great. So three more. There's three more questions currently, Karen. That's okay
Yeah.
with you. Tricia was asking. She thought usually belonging is the root chakra, but that here we discussed belonging as the sacral, and she's curious then, is belonging / receiving, is that both chakras?
Oh, wow. You know what I think? Some of my spiritual practice, you know, when I'm working some of the practices that we do at Clear Sky, it says one thing and then it says another thing, and I'm getting all confused. And is it in this chakra and that chakra? And I remember asking my teacher, I said, I'm trying to get it right. You know, they say it's on the solar plexus here, but now it's in the root chakra here. And now this other person says this. And I think I've come to the conclusion, well, what he said to me, I think they make it purposely foggy. Not purpose foggy, they make it purposely so that the ego doesn't get to position itself or say, okay, now I got it, so now I can go sleep. So I wouldn't get too focused on and just see what comes up for you. And if your power issues are in the sacral rather, then that's for you and that's good for you. And so, you know, take these mappings lightly, right? And I've seen that. I've got my knickers in a twist around this stuff. Does that help, Tricia?
Yeah, thanks so much, Karen.
Yeah, it's lovely to see you again.
Well, lovely to see you too.
Great. And then the last two questions. So Hannah would love to know, where does efforting come from? Yeah, me too. So a constant sense of having to prove and push to be given money for her work in the arts.
Yeah, thanks. I had this exact same pattern, Hannah, right? Duncan is my partner and he knows me in the early years. I'd be like, I'm not making money, I'm not making, and I'd like freak out, right? And I'd over effort and because maybe the over efforting would make all the money appear. And eventually I just burnt that pattern. I kind of burnt out, and I thought, what if I just didn't worry about it? And like I really didn't. I made a commitment just to not care. And it worked. I didn't care. And I think, Duncan, you can vouch for this, can you? Like I stopped caring, and then the money started to come in and things started to happen because I got out of the way. So I just focused on my body. I focused on, it doesn't mean that I didn't do the stuff. Of course, I did the marketing. I did the necessary thing to keep a business going. It doesn't mean like I don't care. I'm going to sit on my bed and have hot chocolate and, eat bananas all day. Right? So it's like we will talk about the archetypes. I didn't mention it in this call. The warrior and the magician. The warrior is the active archetype around money, and then the magician is that part that just feels that life's going to support you, but you still have to. I guess in the Bible it has tie up your trust in Allah, but tie up your camel. So I tie up my camel, and then I just start focusing in on the trust. Right? I don't care. And every time I get upset, Hannah, I'll walk outside and go for a walk now. It's like ding dong, mad woman happening.
Thank you, Karen. And then last question here from Dorothy. She asked, can you speak a bit more to how our responses to money develop in early childhood?
Ooh, that's a big question. How are responses to money? Yeah. So it's to do very much with your relationship with your mother. Okay, and then how attuned she was with you, right? And so some people are I'm built around anxious attachment, right? So sometimes mom was there, sometimes she was not, right? So I never quite felt like life was supporting me, right? So the grasping piece, as a result, connection's important to me, and I'm grasping after things, and that's what I've learned to do. Grasping, where's mom? Where's she? Like it's like, oh, where's the money? What can I do? A grasp over effort, whereas I think if you're not built around anxious attachment, but other attachments, the money and how your actions and how you manifest in your relationship with money is different, right? So it's built very early. I would say it's even built in the womb. My mother had a heart operation in the womb when I was in the womb. Okay, so I think I was 3 months in the womb. So that's why I've worked on these issues, and this is the work I do, because when you were meant to be in bliss in the womb, I was having pharmaceutical medication flowing through my, and then having her heart open, and then breathing, all sorts of things arise from that. So I didn't feel like the universe would support me in the basic foundations of life, such as money and support. So it's been a big long journey for me, and I've got there, and now I want to share that with others, right? And Duncan and Erica's been really a big part of that in my life too. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you for sharing. That's the end of the questions, Karen.
Great. Well, if there's no more, I'll sign you off. Have a lovely Saturday.
Thanks so much. Bye,
You're
everyone.
Thank you, Karen. Nice to see you again. And
Nice to see
Duncan and
you,
Erica.
Thank you, Karen, very much.
Thank you, Isabel. So lovely to see you again.
Hi, Isabel. Nice to see you too.
Hi.
Been a while. Lots of love.
So
Isabel was that.
my daughter will be very unhappy with me if I don't make a point to tell you that Dawn from Panama sent me. So
Oh, she
yeah,
did.
yes, she's my daughter. So
Oh, give her all my love.
I
And
absolutely will.
and her
Thank
daughter's
you.
doing well. Is her daughter doing
Oh,
well?
yeah, absolutely. She's a dynamo.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Lovely to
So
meet you, Shannon, and give all
thank
my
you.
love to
Pleasure
Dawn.
meeting you. Take
Yeah.
care. We'll see each other again.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Catherine. Nice to meet you. And Isabel was oh. We might see Catherine again.